On the 28th of June David turned 34. He went back to St. Anne's Academy for the fifth conviction of breaching the court order, and was arrested. And then he signed a condition of his release saying he would go back to Alberta and see his mom, and that he wouldn't return to St. Anne's Academy. He'd signed it dozens of times, but he went back. He decided he couldn't leave to Alberta. He went back to St. Anne's, and on the 5th of July, and he's been in jail ever since, and he hasn't been eating. So it's been 30 days now, so it's potentially lethal at this point. Also, he's gone 100 days so far in jail, accumulated for as long as 23 days before, and when he's not in jail, he lives off food he finds in the garbage. So this is certainly a life and death thing, but the Honorable Judge Neal, notoriously a hard judge, okay, doesn't want to acknowledge any of this. David's 3 points is that he's never been allowed due process. He's been tortured by security guards hired by the Provincial Capital Commission. In a letter I have from them that they used in the Crown, they slandered David, they lied, they misrepresented Reverend Al, and the Provincial Capital Committee hired security guards to torture David. So that's one thing David wants to bring up. And then the third thing is...
torture? What kind of torture?
Well, the security guards that were hired to keep him from sleeping shined lights in his eyes. They slapped their hands, stomped their feet. They used this chemical called Bumbigon, which is a synthesized fish fertilizer. They put it on the trees as a chemical to keep it irritant. Then they would repeatedly say things like, "You'd just expedite the process if you would just hit one of us, Mr. Johnston," and things along those lines. They threw him off several times off the grounds. In the pouring rain, they took his blankets night after night. They took his, the police took his flute, and this really hurt him. They drove him to the edge of town 6 times in the dead of winter to leave him at the edge of town. They arrested him dozens of times. I mean, I have a list of just 2004 arrests that's 2 pages long. I mean, all of this is in David's journal. He's documented it for years, day after day, and you can get that on AngelFire. www.angelfire/hatrackman, something like that. So all of this is all completely documented. There are affidavits that, like one kid witnessed, he climbed up a tree, and this was in a trial. This is November 2004, the original trial of mischief, and David had no lawyer, no criminal record before that, and then he went to jail. He was convicted for that, but it was released, like no jail sentence, and he kept going back, and he was determined not to acknowledge that the Crown has any power. Now, the lawyer that represented him, Geimer, nice man, but he thinks that if David does not admit that the Crown has any power at all, then there's not much for a lawyer to do. So when David was arrested on July 5th and came in for what they called a judicial hearing release, or judicial release hearing, David was appointed a lawyer by the court, and this is how the lawyer represented David. First, he got his age wrong, and David corrected him. He says, "Oh, I'm sorry. He's 34 years old," with a shrug. I admit that he's no stranger to the court. I don't need to tell you about this. He's a man of strong convictions, and I have to admire his convictions, but he's obsessive.
This is his lawyer?
His lawyer called him obsessive. The court-appointed lawyer called him obsessive. The Crown, the judge did nothing. David wasn't allowed to speak on anything except, "I think I was arrested on a different thing." That's all he got out.